Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us. My name is Andrew Pollner. I'm the product owner for the test automation syllabi for ISTQB, and today we will discuss the two recently introduced syllabi, test automation engineering and test automation strategy. So welcome me here while we discuss the impact of these two new syllabi, how they support one another in terms of the body of knowledge for test automation. And please feel free to add any comments or questions that you may have so that those can be addressed during this live session. Thank you, and here we go. We are introducing today two new syllabi that have recently been either updated or released. A little bit of history would be helpful here. Back in 2016, ISTQB introduced the Test Automation Engineer syllabus. That has been a very popular ISTQB product in that many organizations are looking for answers to how to best implement test automation in an effective manner that's both maintainable and extendable. The Test Automation Engineer syllabus was positioned when it came out as an advanced level module, and of course that means also that it required the foundation level certification as a precondition. The Test Automation Engineer syllabus, even though it's been around since 2016, continues to provide a lot of value in that it is a tool agnostic document. It does not talk to specific technology by make or by brands. It's agnostic of the technology, which allows it to then be more general in its application across a number of different platforms and opportunities for implementing test automation. With the creation of the specialist stream, the Test Automation Engineer was repositioned as a specialist module up until recently. So a few years ago, when ISTQB approved the beginning of updating cycle for test automation engineering, we assembled a group, a task force, to look and see the areas that we wanted to update and improve or even extend the test automation syllabus. In doing so, we found that there are a number of additional areas that we wanted to add into the dialogue of test automation, and these were more strategic in nature. So from that, we created a new syllabus called Test Automation Strategy, and it essentially provides an extension to the topics that are covered in Test Automation Engineer. So as of 2024, as of a few months ago, there is now a new specialist module, Test Automation Strategy version 1.0. At the same time, by recognizing that test automation is a very important topic and is really a part of any tester's toolkit, the Test Engineer, now renamed Test Engineering syllabus, has been repositioned as a core advanced module. So if you were to look on the ISTQB website and you click on certifications, you'll notice that under core advanced, I've highlighted here, we have now the new Test Automation Engineering version 2.0 syllabus. A little further down on the screen under specialist, we see now that the all-new Test Automation Strategy syllabus shows up. So there's some repositioning in terms of the syllabus, and there's also some new materials that are introduced here. So the journey that the syllabus took from the original 2006 version to what we've just released in May is as follows. We started out, as I mentioned early on, a few years back, looking at the content of Test Automation Engineer and recognizing that there was really more information than just engineering information. There's strategic aspects of test automation. So early on, what we did was we split up the content from an engineering content to a strategic content. We then created the two separate documents that reflected those roles and those activities and those tasks. And in typical ISTQB manner, we, as a task force, sent those out for reviews. There's an alpha review and a beta review. We received, hundreds of comments from around the world on these two modules. We reviewed those comments. We incorporated any changes from those comments that were required. And then that allowed us to have the documents ready for release, which officially these two syllabi were released on May 3rd of this year. And now we have two new syllabi. One is a new update and one is a brand new syllabus, the test automation strategy. So one of the things that comes up often is, okay, who's the target audience for these two syllabi? So again, as was the case with test automation engineer, the test automation engineer is typically the person who's a little more technical, who's developing test automation, who's maybe the architect of a test automation solution. That could also include a technical manager, a test manager, who has oversight over that solution. And then also, because of the integration with test automation, with CI/CD pipelines and other tools, we have developers and DevOps engineers involved in both developing and or integrating test automation solutions. And then on the other side, we have the test automation strategy. So from a strategy standpoint, we're talking really more about the use of the automation and where it makes sense to use that automation. So having a technical test analyst in that role is very helpful. Test leads, automation leads will benefit greatly by knowing that there's a good solution and understanding where that solution should be implemented. And clearly all the way up to the project and program. So in terms of new content, what have we added in test automation engineering? Well, a number of the existing areas do remain, and we've updated those, but we've also added some additional content around DevOps, infrastructure, and what it means to have automation within that kind of environment. There's discussion on test and behavior-driven development methods and how automation can help with those. Discussion about the page object model and how we actually work with objects and how automation supports that. Keyword-driven testing was covered before, but it's covered in a little more detail. And then we talk about the CI/CD, the pipelines, and the impact automation has within those pipelines, down to development and deployment, what we need to do to upgrade the technology that's forms the basis of our test automation solution, and some discussion around alerts and dashboards. For test automation strategy, we have content around deployment strategy, different environments and how you work with those different environments, deployment and rollout issues, configuration, management risks and how you assess those, mitigation strategies for those. We also have discussion around release strategies, monitoring of your environment or your environments as you move from one environment to another, how you can improve the overall test automation. We look a little bit at the team, making sure that they're properly trained, that they have the right skill sets, and managing the stakeholder expectations. Who's the end user or consumer of the automation, and how do we make sure that they get the maximum benefit from it? We also have a section that talks about the different costs and risks associated with implementing automation and understanding what it means to have a good return on investment. How do we measure that? When we talk about the two roles, the engineering role and the strategy role, we're not talking about two independent roles. We're talking about roles that essentially overlap one another. So on the left, we have the engineering role, and we want to make sure that the automation is developed correctly, that it works. And then on the right, we have the strategic role. We want to make sure that that automation product is implemented in a way that is useful, that provides the requirements that users need in terms of their effectiveness, the suitability for the task, and that's where we have our strategy. So why do we need two roles? Well, if we look and see what is going on these days on projects and within organizations as they implement automation, we realize that it's not just a one-role solution. There's many tasks that need to be accounted for and planned for within automation. So it made sense to actually divide up the work into the engineering aspects and the strategic aspects. In doing so, we basically better align to what we see as existing roles in industry. They may not have those names, but we know, for instance, that there are folks that are involved in pipeline development, DevOps development, integration of tools, and then there's other folks that typically are focused on the actual automation solution that will run within those pipelines. We also decided on two roles because in doing so, we are now expanding the scope of the body of knowledge to include what is really going on and what people really need to understand and really need to know. So as the market matures, as the tools mature, we are in a very different position now than we were 8 years ago when we first released the syllabus. So in the same way, we want to make sure that the updates reflect current needs, current conditions, and some potential solutions to help organizations. The marketplace for test automation is very competitive. We want to make sure that people understand the best way to implement test automation. So by having the multiple roles, it allows us to segment the body of knowledge to discussing the roles that are most important to an organization. If an organization has leadership roles where they maybe outsource the test automation, it would be helpful for them to understand the strategic aspects of implementation. If they're building automation internally from scratch, or if they're procuring tools, it'll be helpful to first understand the engineering aspects of test automation before moving on to the implementation aspects at the organizational level. So another question that you may ask is, why release both syllabi together as opposed to one at a time? Why didn't we, let's say, update test automation engineer and then at a later time release test automation strategy? Well, the reason why we did that was because we realized early on that these topics do relate to one another, and it makes more sense to have the updated body of knowledge released together so that you can benefit from that expanded body of knowledge and understand how the engineering role and the strategic role kind of interplay and work against each other. There is minimal overlap between the two syllabi, so we're not repeating things in one from the other, but they do work with each other, which is, of course, very helpful. The main reason, again, is to make sure that since the the content is new and is fresh and is updated, we wanted to make sure that we had a new baseline for test automation. So we released both at the same time. And finally, test automation is and has been for many years an in-demand topic. People want to know more about it, so we felt it made the most sense to release them together. So by expanding the body of knowledge, we essentially have an engineering focus, which is really all about creating, architecting those solutions in automation, understanding some of the technical requirements, some of the pitfalls to try to avoid while you're creating your automation, and then the strategy, which is essentially saying, how do we make sure that once we have a good solution for automation, how do we implement that properly? And how do we make sure that the organization is deriving value and is benefiting from that solution? So with those two roles, we have two syllabi: test automation engineering and test automation strategy. To conclude, test automation version 2.0 of the engineering module increases the levels of complexity and helps recognize how automation can help address these increased levels of complexity. With TAS version 1.0, we recognize that good automation is only as good as how it's implemented. So we want to make sure that we implement it correctly. And together, both these modules represent the expanded test automation body of knowledge that ISTQB brings to you. So with that, I thank you for joining and listening, and I'll open it up for questions and answers. Please feel free to submit your questions through the comment pane. Thank you. Okay, very good question about whether or not with CTA, with test automation engineering now being part of advanced level, does that mean that CTA full now requires all 4 advanced certifications? That has not been determined yet. That is something that is being looked at by the test automation, by the advanced level working group. So there will be some information on that forthcoming. So why are there 2 syllabi? Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's really more than just one topic on test automation. And the general categories of those topics focus around the engineering aspects of building your solution and the strategic aspects of properly implementing that solution. So that's why we ended up with those 2 syllabi. So much like with other syllabi from ISTQB, both the test automation engineering syllabus and the test automation strategy syllabus do require CTFL, foundation level certification, as a prerequisite for taking the exam for either of those 2. Okay, very good question. So let's say that you've taken Test Automation Engineer 2016, you're certified in that. Maybe it's been 6 months ago, or it could have been several years ago. The question becomes, do you need to then take the Test Automation Engineering version 2.0 if you're interested in taking the Test Automation Strategy exam? So the short answer is no, you're not required, because Test Automation Engineering 2.0 is the update to Test Automation Engineer. So by that, it means that if you were certified previously, you do not need to recertify. However, because the content has been updated, has been expanded, has changed somewhat, if you are interested in being current on both modules, we would recommend that you study the Test Automation Engineering V2 syllabus, because it is different, and you may be persuaded if you want to also take the new examination that's written specifically around that syllabus. And then correspondingly, you would be taking test automation strategy, which would then keep you with the most current baseline of the test automation products on the ISTQB portfolio. So the next question is about the syllabi. The exams for the syllabi. Is there an order in which those should be taken? So as I explained earlier, although they are related by content, there's no precondition between one and the other. So you can actually take one or take another at whatever order you are interested in. If you're only interested in one, there's no requirement to take the other module. However, if you really are interested in the entire body of knowledge that we have, we would recommend that you look at both syllabi and potentially sit for both exams. So thank you very much for the great questions, and let me know if there's anything else. If not, okay, there's one more question. Any plan for creating test automation expert level certification? Very good question. For some of you who have been with ISTQB and taken certifications for many years, you may have noticed that back in 2015, we did first introduce the test automation engineer syllabus as an expert level module. Then we realized that there was too many requirements from foundation to advanced to expert for something that people really wanted to take and take it without having to jump essentially so many levels. So within a year or so, we quickly refactored the content from expert level to advanced level, and that's pretty much where the level of the content for test automation engineer has stayed for many years, including with the current repositioning. So to answer the question as to whether or not we expect an expert level certification for automation, we don't anticipate one currently, but that could always change in the future. So thank you for that question, and we will make sure that we consider that in the future. Again, thank you for joining us. We enjoy working on behalf of the ISTQB worldwide community and all of you who work and take our certifications and see the value in them and how they can help you professionally, how they can help you with your careers. So thank you again. And I encourage you to go to the ISTQB website so you can actually see the two new syllabi, read through them, and go ahead and consider becoming certified on test automation strategy and test automation engineering when you're able to. Thank you and have a good day.